Hi, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Life on Dr. T TV. I'm Dr. T, and this is the place where emotionally sensitive, highly driven people get the emotional tools they need to succeed. With me today is an awesome guest I'm really excited to talk to today. But first, I'm going to read a little bit about her. And this is Jayme Cellitioci, who is an MS in creativity and an innovation strategist. She's also a free choice science learning practitioner and an author. She's based in Northern California with her husband and son. And Jayme focuses her energy on empowering youth and families to enrich their relationships with science, with one another, and the planet by using wonder as their compass. Jayme, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here, and thank you so much for the invitation.
This is awesome. And I want to make sure I said your name right. So, how do you say it?
Oh, yes. Well, we say Cellitosi,
Okay.
but I did travel to Italy, and they told me the proper pronunciation is Cellitioci.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, I
So,
love it.
yeah,
Okay.
so anything in between is fine.
Okay, good, 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 good. Well, I'm so excited to have you here because I am somebody that really loves the wonder of life. I love, as an emotional scientist, it's like when I became a psychologist, that was, one part of it. But I really recognized that my whole life I'd really been studying things in a very scientific way. And I really love all the work that you're doing, and I want to have everybody to be able to learn all about it. So let's first start out by talking about what your journey has been like that really brought you to be doing this work and focusing on wonder as my compass as your priority right now.
Yes. Well, and I would say using wonder as your compass certainly comes through in the work that you're
Oh,
doing. And
thank
so thank you for sharing your sense of wonder with everyone so that we can
you.
follow the interesting pathways that you head
Got
down.
it.
So I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I remember a long time ago, someone handed me an ocean book when I was a little girl. It was a neighbor, and things really just sort of spiraled from there. And I was obsessed with the ocean, but mostly looking at snowbanks most of the time.
Right.
But my mom was wonderful about when we would take trips, they would often center around seeing dolphins or something to do with marine mammals. And that just grew and grew for me. In fact, I have a trapper keeper, which dates me a little bit to the 1980s childhood.
Yeah, I've
That's
had one.
just yeah, okay. Yes, with the teddy bear riding the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
dolphin. And I still have mine, and it's filled with yellowed letters to Jacques Cousteau
Oh,
and
that's so
all
fun.
sorts of things of the sea and nature. So this, was in me, and then it's the nature nurture cultivated with some of my experiences. And then by the time it was, well, actually in high school, I had a major. It was a vocational
Mm.
school, and it was aquatic ecology. And so
Oh,
we would
awesome.
dress up in our waders and our snow hats and go out into streams and collect fish. And it was really a great start to my science career pathway.
That is awesome. And I'm just
Yeah.
picturing you in Buffalo, New York, but you've got the
Yes.
ocean book. And right there, you're in the wonder, right? You're connected to something that is not just only what you can see right here in your surroundings, but something much deeper is navigating you there, right? It's like a sense of expansion that was really going on.
Yes. And honestly, I'm so grateful for that start because now I live in Northern California, and I had lived in Maui, Hawaii for some time.
Wow.
I had some internships there that turned into more of my career pathway, working with Maui Ocean Center and Pacific Whale Foundation out there. But honestly, when I was in the woods in Buffalo, New York, and noticing all kinds of cool details, that was just as amazing
Yeah.
to me. And so, regardless of where you're at and whether you have a patio on your apartment complex or deep woods where you live, there's that wonder can be followed everywhere.
Well, and I love this because what we're talking about, especially for our audience that is so emotionally sensitive and very intuitive and has this great superpower of being able to be aware, right? And so I'm getting the sense that this awareness of yours was that kind of multisensory capacity, right? That not every person has in the exact same range as another person. But it is that sense of awareness and being able to follow it. And I imagine, it sounds like your family was supporting that expansion for you and your interests, and that really made a huge difference.
Yes, and what's amazing to me too is, I think of my mom. She'll be the first to tell you that camping in the woods is not her first choice. But
Ah,
I think that parents so oftentimes are very selfless in nurturing their
mm.
children's interests and sort of seeing past. Okay, what kind of environments and situations are they going to emotionally and physically, mentally thrive in?
Oh, this is so cool because, until a certain point in our lives when we're little, we don't necessarily have the full on permission to take our awareness and expand it. And depending
Yes.
on everybody's unique situation, when there is a sensibility in our parents that says,
Yes.
this, I'm
Mhm.
here to develop this in this person, rather than
Yeah.
in some cases it's like, and I'll just speak to something that I always found funny.
Mhm.
I love to dance, but my dad loved basketball. And so he cultivated me in that. And while I was a really, really, and I still am a really good basketball player, um, it's really interesting the difference between when parents are saying, this is who my child is, and they're revealing that to me,
Yes.
and
Yes.
their wonder, I'm going to follow that. And when maybe parents don't even necessarily know how to do that. And so I know that's part of what you're doing, to help parents navigate that, correct?
Absolutely. It's so interesting because a lot of times, children who are really into science, their parents are looking for programs that will further that, especially
Yeah.
if they're not feeling confident in the topic. But I always hope it's the parents with children that maybe haven't shown that interest
Yeah.
that will think about that access and exposure.
Oh,
And
definitely.
so, everything that we can do to just open those little doorways to allow those connections to happen. And I
Yeah.
think we would see a lot of our girls more into
Oh,
science earlier because the natural interest is absolutely there. Yeah, and but as our children grow older, sometimes we are a little more quick to hand our boys tools or that robotics
yeah.
kit. You're starting to see a little more equity in the toy aisles, but those messages sort of flood in.
They are. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, just thinking about um how interesting it can really be, because I know in parenting, right? There's just so much stuff that people are doing, and there's a lot of responsibility, but there really is this beautiful path that a child is taking. And, rather than kind of feel overwhelmed by that or frustrated or feel, like you said, maybe if your child's really into math or something and you feel insecure about that, being able to allow that to guide your own getting to learn something that your child is maybe even showing up to expand in your life. And is that something that resonates for you?
Oh goodness, yeah. Well, I have a 10-year-old son, and so this is, this message is alive and well for me professionally and then personally. And I think it's just such an incredible time. While there are obviously so many intense challenges that
Yeah.
have come along with the pandemic, there have been these really interesting opportunities to have a learning revolution
I know.
and to understand that we can and should be learning together. And I so often think that a big part of my calling is to de-shame science learning. It's just incredible how many people just either feel that they should know these things, or that that all of these other people
Yeah.
understand it but I don't. And now when we deal with a pandemic and
No.
wildfires and all of these things, and you're needing to tune into, your apps and groups and get information, and then critically think through that information and sort of think, okay, well, what does this mean for me? And then how do I talk to my child or
Mm-hmm.
children about this with giving them a sense of security and hope, and also maybe utilizing it to
Yeah.
enhance their science literacy and get them really involved in a way that allows them to say, okay, yes, mom, I think we should, avoid this situation, or
Yeah.
I see the air quality is at this certain level, and really get them involved with looking at the data in a way that you're
Yeah.
using some discretion about what they're exposed to.
This is so cool because this is the life that is also happening to them. This is their world.
Yes.
And I was just talking to somebody about this week. I think it was one of our clients about because in the emotional training process that we do, the
Mm-hmm.
emotional techniques that we utilize to help people stay out of reactivity, be able to
Yes.
be connected, and communicate intentionally is a framework, Jayme, so that families can communicate. And so I was talking about, and we train children as well. When we train their parents, sometimes they want the whole family to
Okay.
learn, all of
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
And we were talking about this, how there's there's adult content and kid content, but in reality, there's a lot more content that just needs to be utilized in a really productive way so that children are not just kept in the dark about something in the world they're living in, but that they can really, okay, this is what is going on in our world, and that their
Yes.
own little, amazing young contributions and
Mm-hmm.
awarenesses can come through that. And right, there's solutions perhaps for what, like you said, whatever we're going to do about it, that it's a collaboration rather than like I'm in this hierarchy and you are this younger person.
Yes. And I think that we can go extreme on both ends. We could have a TV running that's just spewing for hours this really scary
Yeah.
information, but also on the flip side, we could do the disservice of keeping it completely hidden
Yeah.
too. And so, I really encourage that middle ground of trying to filter that information and then figuring out, okay, how do we take this in bite-sized pieces
Yeah.
and get our arms around this. And oftentimes it's sort of looking at what are the creative problem solving solutions that have been designed or
Yeah.
implemented so that our children are seeing the problem as well as the solution, and that's planting that seed of these cycles of,
That's right.
okay, this is how some people have figured out how to handle this, or here's one way that we're mitigating the effects of this.
I love this. So we're presenting what is occurring, talking about all the factors, and then inviting what is the solution, or showing these are the solutions that are being looked at. And that's a
Yes.
whole form of right of psychological emotional training, where
Yes.
instead of just having, I think our culture is so conditioned, problem, 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 like 90% so focused on the problem, and then finally a little bit about the solution. And so the conditioning is like to be burdened and bogged down in it, rather than just having like these parts of the equation be so much of a regular conversation between any people, parents, their kids. And I love, just when you said that, I just pictured how a person would be throughout their lifetime when that's the kind of emotional process that you're going through to
Yeah.
navigate real life issues that we need to like apply ourselves to.
Yes, yes. And the things that we can do for our kids to really help them be part of the preparing. So a
Yeah.
really specific example for us is we're only 5 years into Northern California,
Okay.
and obviously, even for people who have lived here forever, you're dealing with new, more intense
Yeah.
situations, right? And so we have our Rubbermaid bins kind of organized in the garage in case we are needing to head out of town at any point.
Yeah.
It feels good to be in December.
Yeah, it
Right?
does, doesn't it? Oh my gosh,
It does.
it was so crispy around here. Oh
Yes.
God.
So it was, but I had, we were able to create these, wonderful, wonderful bins, and we put in even some extra emergency supplies like a compass and a whistle. And we almost treated it as if we need to do this as its own adventure. Here we are feeling really prepared. And for myself personally, that's a great way to sort of bring down
Yeah,
that anxiousness about it all. Is if this, then that. And
love that.
and looking at what are the types of tools that we would want to have, that sort of future thinking.
Yeah.
um
This is
and
great. This is oh
mhm.
go ahead.
No, I was going to go in a
Oh, okay,
completely different
okay.
direction. And
I was gonna,
I was thinking about empathy too
oh yeah. Okay. No, go ahead.
in all of this. And when we can look at people who have gone through these different
Hmm.
scenarios, and
Yeah.
what did they do, what did they wish they had maybe thought about, and then how can we build on that learning collectively.
Oh, this is so good because, as a psychologist and an emotional scientist, again, I know I'm repeating this, but there is so much reactivity that just keeps remaining in the problem or the trauma. Something occurred, we didn't, this is the way it turned out or however far we've gotten it, and there's so little time, there's so little there's a minimum amount often given to the exploration of solutions and the study of, like, if we were scientifically looking at something with
Yeah.
the empathy, to your point, with the empathy for the situation, but we've got both all the lenses on it, so we're not like lost in all of the emotional stuff and the empathy burdens us where we can't be strategic, but then we have both sides of it where we're really, and because we're looking at it, that's an empathetic thing to do, to look at it so it's better for the future. But the
Mm-hmm.
study of things, this is and I think in family systems where, because of lots of technology and things like that, people aren't often communicating and collaborating about what's going on and the meaning of it and how we can integrate it and apply it in our life and grow, through something really, really challenging. And just, I can just picture the conversations that you're having in your family and the stuff that you're doing together. It sounds really awesome.
Well, and that's kind of why I wrote the book. Is not so much. I mean, my career calling has been in hands-on science learning,
Yeah.
and so just like someone who bakes amazing cakes with their child because
Yeah.
that's their pathway. You don't want my mookies. Let me tell you that. Like half
Monkeys.
muffin, half cookies. So you know. It's been an interesting journey to share this, because I don't want to come from the perspective of, look at this cool experiment that our family did,
uh,
because of course that's what I do. So I really, this is my wonder is my
yes.
compass, is my book here. And I tried to make it very much a coffee talk, especially with someone who really wants to prepare their child, but maybe they have some inhibitions around
Right.
science, or their connection is, oh, I failed that chem lab, and then I changed my major.
Yeah.
And they have like a kind of a broken relationship with science based on those associations.
Oh, I so get that. And I want to talk a little bit more about the de-shaming science. This call, and I know what it's like to live my calling and live inside a purpose and how important these things are. And so that still sounds very specific. So say more about that, Jayme.
Yes, it goes back to what you were saying about feeling comfortable and embracing and even thriving in those moments where we can learn together. And the research by Dr. John Falk shows that 95% of our science learning happens outside of the
Oh,
formal learning
yeah.
environment. So basically 95% of what we're learning about science is not in science class in school, that most of us associate, or many people
Yeah.
associate science learning with. And so when we think about that, it's like, okay, well, where does science show up and how? So something as simple as knowing that there's going to be a lunar eclipse. So how do
No.
you, as a family, look on YouTube and watch some videos about it, and then get your hot cocoa and your binoculars ready, and then what might you do following that to really get the most and extend that learning. So
Okay.
it's just taking these very cool things. Science is incredible. It's if you just took a breath right now, there's your science. So
No.
this happens in so many layers and levels. But when we can take just very exciting things like natural phenomena, and then use those as pathways and gateways to exploring life and the world more deeply, that's such a precious thing, and it builds our family relationships and
Yeah.
memories.
I love the lunar eclipse example, and it just has, me thinking about how interesting it is to be alive,
Mm-hmm.
how interesting it is to be inhabiting a planet, which is, many people go throughout their lives and don't really fully experience it, don't know all that much about it, and whatever their developmental conditioning was, they tend to kind of follow and repeat those
Mm-hmm.
patterns unless they do some sort of a, more intentional personal development, and or if somebody's naturally very driven for learning, and then people who are, they already kind of do that, but there's a whole segment of the population that may have either they don't have as much as a drive, or whatever it is, the nature nurture piece or whatever, that's not as alive in them,
Yeah.
but it's important for it to be, because we are this is literally our home, this is
Yeah.
our home, and we know there's so many ways in which it's not we're not taking great care of it, and so it seems really imperative that people, that the youngest of ages really understand what's really going on here. you
Yeah.
know
Well, and it's very much what drives me. I mean, at one point, maybe we looked at being in an after school science club as something sort of fun to enrich an already existing hobby. And now it's like we cannot let our children not
no.
be science literate, and
Yeah.
have comfort with STEM or STEAM. So STEM being science, technology, engineering,
Yeah.
and mathematics, and STEAM has the arts, is the
Yeah.
A in there. And I very much talk a lot about STEAM in this book, because it's that combination of thinking creatively, thinking about design, and then how does that all fit together with leveraging STEM. So we don't even have a choice for our children to be successful global citizens.
If they
We
don't.
we have to figure out what does that look like for me or for us, and how might we get there. And it could be the mechanic, your seafood
Of
preparer at the
course.
grocery store. It's a multi-dimensional approach, and you don't have to have any specific knowledge or experience in order to facilitate
Yeah.
science learning for your child or other children.
Well, and I'm just thinking too about, we at our company, Dr. Tracy Inc., we help people understand that they are powerful creators, whether they
Mm-hmm.
have ever been told that or not, or whether they've learned something that tells them they're not impactful or
Yeah.
influential. Every human being is making a major impact
Mm-hmm.
on everything that goes on, whether you just look at it through like the butterfly effect, or you know
Yeah.
and we still are really we're still really in an immature state as a society, immature, like emotional state as a society, as a collective, for people understanding how powerful they are, from the earliest stages of their life, that they're influencing things in the world, and that they are influential, and that being able to me, it's about, when we know that that's true, it's so important for us to like really understand a lot of things, so that we're making very conscious decisions and conscious contributions, because it to me it feels like that's what we're all here to do. And
Yeah.
it still feels like some sort of secret going on that you could be
Yes.
8 years old and you are a highly influential person.
Well, and that's what's so incredible about when we look into anthropology.
Oh,
We one of the stories I wrote about in the book was I was at a ice age dig site, a Pleistocene dig site, and we were digging up bones from mastodons. This very carefully and methodically. And when we would see how some of those pieces, including a bead and some arrowheads, were shaped to accomplish goals, and you can just get that visceral experience of the human maker and creator of tools.
so
I
cool.
think the more that we show children, okay, here's the resources available, the scenario, and look at those stepping stones.
Right. And well, it's everything. It's like the computer that you're on right now, whatever it is, that understanding of, there are human beings that are using all of this creativity and the combination of, creativity and art and science and innovation and all of the spirit of that to create things that are like they've literally designed our world. And it
Yeah.
really does, when you're connected to that, it is a wonder.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yes, yes.
it's magical, right? It really
Yeah.
it really is magical to and I one of my things that comes to mind, I think of like when I go to the in Florence, I go there, I've gone there regularly, and being in the Duomo and understanding the entire story of how humans created that and how they went through a process of completing it and every single solution that they came up with and all the ways that they study that. It's just one example of going like, humans are very like,
Yes.
it's like the wonder of it all. And it
Yes.
really is this magical thing, but to me it's like, but it's really about knowing we are magical, we are
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes. And it's it's kind of funny because sometimes when I hear that quote about loving to the moon and back, and
Yeah.
I've said it, I've used it, I've read it, etc. But I always think like, gosh, let's love them way into the Milky Way and
Yeah.
deep into the ocean, and that expansiveness, and just understanding that when we stretch ourselves out, we can never go back.
Yeah.
And I
That's so
we
cute.
we always go to the last 3 or 4 years, not this year. We've gone to Yosemite for
Yeah.
Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
and my son said, it changes you. And I would just, that really touched me when he said that. And I said, like, in what ways? And he was referring to that sense of capacity.
Yeah.
Like, once you see things that are so big or tall or beautiful, like El Cap,
Oh.
you don't unsee that, and you have more reference and perspective. And right now, our children that are in virtual learning environments,
Yeah.
that many of them are, they're sending very professional emails to their teachers about what they need about the site. And my son is head of IT in our house now and helps us with Zoom. And now it's like we've gone to a new place that we are not going to shrink back from. And sort of like, how do we take all of these experiences and tools and then think about what's the healthiest scenario for humans, and what are the pluses and what are the minuses of all of these things we've been sort of forced to
Yeah.
rapidly try on, and what are we going to integrate going forward? So it's a
Right.
very difficult but also intriguing time right now.
It is, and I just love this. This is a quotable, everyone. When you stretch and expand, you never go back. And I think that's really important. Thinking of all the emotionally sensitive people that we support, and we train their emotional capacity, Jayme, to expand and to see their emotional responses and reactions from us as a scientist, and to study themselves as a scientist. And because otherwise everything is so subjective and personalized and hard to look at, and
Yes.
and when you're looking at something as a scientist, which I feel like humans are, whether we,
Mm,
take that moniker on or not, we are
yes.
scientists, we are explorers, we're adventurers, we're
Yeah.
creators. Um, and that whole scientific piece, I've said to people for years, when you expand your emotional capacity to know things in a way that you haven't known them, people would be worried, well, I'm going to go back, I'm going to end up back in the depression or back in the anxiety or back, even back in the addiction. And it's
Hmm.
like, I'll say, you will never unlearn this. You will never go back. You will never be the same in the best way. And this is, of course, why I love emotional science, but also just love to study what it is to be a person and to be on this planet.
Yes, oh, absolutely. And it's on the Myers-Briggs, I don't mind sharing I'm a flaming ENFP on there. So
Got
I
it.
have all the feels. And so
Yeah.
when you dig into the science and okay, oh, actually, my amygdala is getting hijacked right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's something physical and chemical going on here. It's just the more you understand the science, the more you can be that witness that we, all long to be in order to manage those emotions
Yeah.
that come up. And it's just like someone who is loves to paint and maybe they're naturally pretty good at it,
Yeah.
who's afraid to take a class because they think if I learn these new mechanics,
Yeah.
I won't be this natural artist. But boy, if and that might be the case for some, but for some that have taken the leap and realized, oh my goodness, I can have all of this natural flow and talent, but also these techniques, when I put it all together,
Yeah.
that's where some profound impacts can happen, and
Yeah.
outcomes in paintings.
Yeah, and it will integrate, right? It will. I think people may not realize, like, you're just, it's all integrates. It all gets layered in together in this amazing way, and so it's
Yes.
always worth it. It's always worth it to grow and learn something. And I love the example that you gave about being able to go, oh, something's occurring, having a sense of self-awareness that can know, oh my gosh, I'm kind of feeling this in my amygdala is being hijacked. And I think to myself, uh how much how interesting it is that in our educational system, that even though there's bits and pieces of it, that there is little of sort of what I refer to as selfology.
Oh, I love it.
um
Yeah.
right, and under, like, you do we all know how our liver's working and what it's doing for us? Do we have a sense of what all of these amazing mechanisms that are the system of a self? Because when we start to know that, again, it's miraculous, it's magical, it's infinite. And you, instead of being sort of dependent, I feel like, on the healthcare system or whatever, it's like we all are meant to be really like self scientists in a way.
Yes.
um that it just allows us to have that much more authority or agency, really, over our
Yes.
experiences and over our life. And in our emotional training programs, this is a big part of what we do, to have people come into a really scientific understanding of themselves, not just emotionally, but a real understanding of what it is to be a person, how it works, and how to do it the most optimally for that person. And that's what makes it really fun. And
Yes.
I'll add one more thing, which is that I think one of the hardest parts of all this is that there is so much conditioning and fear
Yeah.
around looking at the self.
Hmm.
That people will run away from it. We don't want to look at emotions. Emotions have very bad PR, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to change. I'm here to change that. That's one of my callings. And
Yeah.
does that resonate with you, Jayme?
Oh goodness, absolutely. Everything that we're afraid of, that we shy away from, boy, if we harness the power of
Oh,
it, the things we can do.
no, it's incredible. And now, what was sort of whether it was a series of things or the biggest thing that really propelled you to say, this is my calling. I'm de-shaming science. What was it that really brought that about?
Well, when you first said that, I had this very funny memory from when I was much younger at an aquarium, a public aquarium, and I was looking at an orca, which I'm happy to take my son to the Pacific Ocean to see the animals, right
Yeah.
in the sea. But in the moment, I remember that a woman called her husband over to say, "Honey, come look at the penguins." And I thought, oh no, I have a long career ahead of me.
I did not
So
see that coming.
sorry, that was the first thing that popped in my mind. So after doing this aquatic ecology in high school, I found this brochure of this sailboat called Seamester that led me to Long Island University
Oh.
at Southampton. And I dove right into a marine science degree. And I was taking a couple of psychology classes as well.
Hmm.
And, I was finding the biochemistry and some of the subjects I was doing, I wasn't quite prepared for. And then I was acing my psychology. And
Mm-hmm.
my genetics professor said, "Are you sure you're not more of a social scientist?"
Oh, got
And
it.
actually, it sounds it was not offensive when he said this. I thought, well, no, I'm actually not sure about
Yeah.
that. And then I found psychology and biology.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to choose in the end. And so folks that majored in that either went into neuroscience, or there was kind of this marine mammal pathway. But what was funny was a lot of us felt like these sort of marine science dropouts. Like we just couldn't
Yeah.
hack it, and they weren't talking enough about the dolphins. And there's a little personal self stigma going on with it. And it wasn't really until I moved through that degree more deeply that I understood, oh, this isn't just a default plan, but this is just everything
Yeah.
to
This
me.
is the path unfolding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the
Yeah.
calling. Got
And
it.
then
Got
I
it.
went on for a master's in creativity and change leadership. And, if I made a Venn diagram, that combination of science, where science and then creativity and innovation overlap,
Yeah.
is that space is really where I like to play.
Got it.
And a lot of creativity tools woven into the writing for families about what type of language
Yeah.
can we use to invite ideas and solutions.
Yeah, and so Jayme, tell us more about Wonder is My Compass. Tell us more about what people can expect in the book and all the stuff that you've put in there to help them to grow in this area.
Yeah, so I kind of retell that story in the beginning that science has been my calling, but I've sort of struggled with that relationship a little bit, like many other
Yeah.
people that might be reading it, but realized that we can all really create our own individual
Yeah.
pathways. And sort of once you get rid of that, what grade am I going to get? Or am I good at science? Or can I do it? When you push past that and you realize that it's just a lifelong relationship, that's where a lot of special things happen. And so I go, there's so many experiments online that I didn't get too specific in, you should mix this type of borax with this to make the best slime.
Hmm.
I kind of hint at that throughout the book. Loads of websites that you could get that from, but really it's about cultivating that mindset to use science and creativity to be able to enhance your family life while at the same time everyone be growing their relationship with science and just essentially preparing our children to be global citizens.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what would be your absolute ideal outcome for what this book does and what it creates in the world?
I would absolutely want every person to sincerely believe me that they do have what it takes
Mhm.
to cultivate science learning with their own child or children, in the world that they, perhaps they're a coach or a grandparent or, a good neighbor. they have access to being able to facilitate science. And the very first thing they need to do is really kind of explore their own relationship with it and look at what are some of those little barriers that they can break down, and what do they naturally wonder about, and to not just do that for themselves, but to help others. We all have to know, like, how do I pursue my own personal
Yeah.
curiosity? And that's where it really gets contagious, is when you are figuring out, okay, here's how I would go about learning something new.
Yeah.
Maybe I can inspire others around me.
Oh, this is cool. And I'm so excited for everybody to read it. So pick it
Thank
up. And any other projects we should know that you're working on? Things that, would be of interest to our emotionally sensitive audience who's really working to develop their ability to live their purpose. Yeah. What else is going on, Jayme?
I would say that the book for me is really that conversation, and I would love to have people take even a little leap or a risk on checking it out and thinking about who might be, who in their life might benefit from this, because this was a new exploration. I self-published and
Yeah.
learned everything from scratch, and I'm really, science and writing is my thing, and not so much marketing and distribution. So
Yep.
that this is a whole new world. So in many ways, I kind of have, a couple of fingers crossed that this book will get into the right people's hands, and that we can share it in a way that uplifts parents and teachers and grandparents and others right now in this really, this unprecedented time.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a better,
I know, but
less
it really
used
is the
adjective.
word. I know it really is the word. Yeah.
But, right now, if we can help to empower as many adults who are taking on that burden and opportunity of growing our children's love for science and learning and preparing them, that's my goal. I
Yeah.
even give away the PDF of the book for free on my website.
Yeah. Go ahead and give us
Because,
that website, Jayme.
yeah, so it's jaymecellitioci.com, CELLITIOCI.com. And of course, I'd love for you to buy it from your local bookstore and or Amazon or Barnes and Noble. But ultimately, if there's any barrier, I just want the words to be able to reach everyone that they need to.
Oh, this is such a great gift. And I love this. I really invite all of you to buy the book, but also really think about people in your life, friends of friends, and they're thinking about these different all the different families that would benefit from this. And I love that. I give a lot of books away, Jayme. My book called The Method. All of our coaches have it, hundreds of them, and because I want it out in the world, I want people to
Yes.
grow and pass it on, and have again what I kind of call like an emotional strength effect, but in this case,
Yes.
it's the science effect here, right? I guess we got the scientific effect, right? Oh, there it
Yes,
is.
it always comes back to the science. And I'll be sending you a couple of books that you can raffle off to your clients and your audience. And I really appreciate you inviting me into this world that you've cultivated, and just being able to reach some more, minds and hearts. And again, this really does all come back to the science of emotion. We're all humans with navigating the world with our thoughts and our feelings, and so I hope the feeling comes up for everyone, that they want to provide this, for the children in their life.
Nice, nice, nice. So before we wrap, I have a question that I ask everybody who's on the show. And the
Yes.
question is about, if for some strange reason we don't need the details about it, but for some reason this was the last moment that you could give your message to the world. And this would be a message that you would want people to have and know, Jayme taught me that, and it would be resonating through the generations. And for people, just helping people improve their lives, and it's kind of like it's a legacy message, Jayme. So what do you think that message would be?
There are no barriers to science except the ones that we create. And so, for those of us that are in the science arena, we have a tremendous responsibility for making sure that we are reaching out and using terms and language that others can access.
Wow.
And for those of us that don't feel like we have, as much access to it, or some inhibitions around, there are a million ways to go about dissolving those. And it's absolutely imperative that we do, not just for navigating our future, but really because experiencing the wonder of the world will bring us very deep joy, and that joy is absolutely contagious and connects us
Wow.
in many ways.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that we had you on the show. It has been so delightful talking to you. I
You
love creating a bigger scientific effect in the world. And I love that there are no barriers other than emotional barriers.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and this has just been incredible. So I want to invite everybody who's been watching the show to just take all of this perspective in to your heart and into your mind and put it into your life. And just thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. T. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jayme.
Thank you.